Without objection, I now recognize the ranking member for any concluding remarks he may have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One quick thing before we enter. It does matter when they knew and didn't know, because after they supposedly found out, it does matter because after they two meetings with officials from the United States, it was never talked about and no linkage was made. So it does matter. And the reason it matters is because if there is no understanding that this is being withheld, there is no threat, there is no quid pro quo. And it also goes to the state of mind of Mr. Zelensky, who says, I'm not being pressured, there's nothing here. And again, it goes back to the amazing thought of this majority who keeps calling the Ukrainian leader a liar. It's just amazing that we continue to propagate that myth here tonight. But what did we learn today? Here's some things we did learn today. It's an unprecedented hearing that Mr. Sensenbrenner and others talked about, in which staff basically not members gave testimony and questioned each other and got into very heated debates with each other. This is not what the Judiciary Committee should be doing. It's not the way this should be held. Again, the reason it is, Mr. Goldman handled himself very well, but he's not Adam Schiff. He doesn't wear a member pin. This is ridiculous. We shouldn't be doing this. The Intel Committee also, what we did find out today, took phone records and went on a political endeavor against the ranking member and others, but no one will take responsibility for telling the staff to use Mr. Nunez's numbers or others, or who decided to put the smear job in the report. We'll just assume that's Mr. Schiff, since I do hold the member accountable. You know, also we found out today, which was really interesting, that staff can determine what's relevant or not members of Congress. It's interesting to me that staff told members of Congress that that wasn't relative or that wasn't relevant. Again, it goes back to the problem we don't have members here to actually talk about this. Also, it just is another thing we've learned today, that the chairman continues to just disregard House rules. Just completely, blatantly disregarding House rules on not addressing the minority hearing day. And if I hear basically one more time, I'll address that when we're marking up impeachment articles. What is the use of a minority hearing day if you're going to have evidence about the markup if you get the confirmation at the markup itself? Even your most heated debate on getting rid of this president does not show any way that can be fair. And in the end, both parties are in the minority. If you destroy the institutional integrity, which again, the staff have talked about today, if we destroy the institutional integrity, there's nothing else for us to do. But while we were here, there was something that did happen. And as we were sitting here discussing whether to impeach the president over a call he had with the Ukrainian president and President Zelensky, which took place on how there was a look at how it happened in 2016. Democrats are seeking to impeach the president over that, and we're seeing the problems with the Russia investigation play out again in front of our eyes. The fuss over the Ukraine is the same thing, using the same playbook. A select group of individuals colluding against the President Trump to ensure they get him, and they are blowing through every procedure and principle of fairness and honesty to ensure they get him in time. So what happened today while we were stuck here? The Inspector General report. The review of 4 FISA applications and other aspects of the FBI Crossfire hurricane investigation. Here's some of the top findings. The FBI included inaccurate information in the Carter Page FISA application. The FBI failed to include exculpatory information in the FISA. The FBI did not corroborate a huge amount of the information in the Page FISA. The FBI chose to defensively brief candidate Clinton, not candidate Trump. The FBI failed to disclose Bruce Orr's information that Steele reporting was going directly to the Clinton campaign. An FBI attorney altered another agency's email to mislead about whether Carter Page had actually been a U.S. intelligence source. The bottom line, the report shows the Page FISA should have never been obtained. If you don't have the Page FISA, you don't have a Russia investigation. If you don't have a Russia investigation, you can't knock out the president as a candidate at the time of the 26th election, and you can't hamstring the president's first 2 years with a special counsel investigation. I could go on, but Mr. Durham, who has already weighed in, has the next batch of this, and we'll see where it goes. But I do want to take one last thing from our side, because this undoubtedly will be the last hearing, because we have no desire to hear anything from our side, minority hearing or otherwise. I want to take the time to thank Mr. Castor and Ms. Callan. They're the top investigators in the Intelligence and Judiciary Committee, and they combined have 15 to 20 years experience in the House conducting investigations to protect American interests and taxpayer dollars. What these public servants don't usually do as a part of their work is field questions from others who come before them, from Democrats, donors, and pundits. Ms. Castor and Ms. Callan usually work for and alongside members of Congress and fellow public servants. I'm sorry today that the majority chose to highlight their investigators and also the ones that have been brought in over these public servants. I'm sorry to choose that this is where we're at, but I would like to thank them for their work today. I'd like to thank them for their work on our behalf, but also I think really for all the ones listening here. If you look around the room, this is what's happening to the American people. By the end of the day, most in the back left, most of the members of the media are begging to go somewhere else because at the end of the day, your case isn't made. And one thing that just keeps amazingly said from Mr. Goldman to the chairman to others, that these facts are undisputed. The very nature of the fact that I say I disagree and you say you don't is a disputed fact. These are disputed facts. It'll be the first impeachment that is partisan on facts that are not agreed to. That is the state in which the judiciary has become. We have become a rubber stamp, just as the chairman predicted almost 20 years ago when we willingly accept from someone else a project or a report that we don't investigate ourselves. And with that, that is the problem we have, and that is the farce called the Judiciary Committee impeachment scam today. I yield back.
I now recognize myself for concluding remarks. After hearing the reports and the evidence today, we now know several things with certainty. We know that the president was at the center of a scheme to pressure Ukraine to announce an investigation of the president's political rivals. He applied that pressure by withholding both a White House meeting and vital military aid. He made that demand directly to President Zelensky and confirmed his personal involvement on the White House lawn. We know that there are no excuses for this conduct. It is no excuse that President Trump eventually released the aid after his scheme was revealed to the public. And it is no excuse that he insisted that there was no quid pro quo only after his scheme was revealed to the public. We know that his actions endangered our national security, putting our alliances, our reputation, and our safety at risk. We know that the president also compromised the integrity of our elections for a corrupt, private, political purpose. We know that President Trump, in an unprecedented act of obstruction, ordered everybody in the executive branch to defy all congressional subpoenas for documents and subpoenas related to the impeachment inquiry. And we know that his attempts to solicit a political favor from the government of Ukraine fit a pattern of conduct that the president established in 2016 when he solicited political assistance from the government of Russia. That pattern of misconduct undermines our national security and undermines free and fair elections. In abusing his office in this manner and in obstructing the investigation that followed, we know that President Trump has put himself before his country. I am struck by the fact that my Republican colleagues have offered no serious scrutiny of the evidence at hand. They have talked about everything else, but they have offered not one substantive word in the president's defense. I suspect that is because there is at base no real defense for the president's actions. President Trump put himself before his country. There is a constitutional remedy for a president who undermines our national security and our elections, who puts his own interests before those of the country. That remedy is impeachment. The facts are clear. The danger to our democracy is clear, and our duty is clear. President Trump violated his oath to the American people. He placed his own private interests ahead of our national security and the integrity of our elections, and constitutes a continuing threat to the integrity of our elections and to our democratic system of government. Such conduct is clearly impeachable. This committee will proceed accordingly. This concludes today's hearing. We thank all of our presenters for participating. Without objection, all members will have 5 legislative days to submit additional written questions for the presenters or additional materials for the record. Without objection, the hearing is adjourned.